Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the Real Collective Podcast. As always, I am your host, Sean Tasse, joined by my illustrious co-host, friend, keeping calm, is Kyle Miller. Kyle, welcome back to it. How are you doing today?
Oh, living the dream as usual. Still not frozen, so that's nice.
It is. It's snowing. It's a little cold outside, but it's it's the winter weather. We had our last weekend. We had our neighborhood winter carnival, and it was like cold enough, but there was a part of me that was like, you dress for it. There's hot chocolate. It makes it worthwhile being out in the cold and like seeing all the people who you only see normally in the summertime. It kind of makes it
Yeah.
wild to be out there skating. And we played a little shinny. It was fun. It was a good way. I scored a beautiful goal. I'm not a hockey player. Like I played hockey growing up, like shinny hockey, not like actual what. But I scored this nice goal where I dangle over here, put it past one of the dads that we were playing against. It was dads and kids, right? So it's like if you dangle on a kid, it's not that big of a deal. But I dangled on a dad, so I felt pretty good about myself.
I was 100% going like, how old was the kid did you dangle? Like that was 100% where I was going with that. I'm like,
Yeah, of
thank God
course.
I was like, dude, how was that 9-year-old? Were they falling on their face? Like, what's
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's yeah. They they were just holding one of those red things and a stick in the other hand,
Yeah.
just learning to play. No, it was fun. We had a good time. It was good neighborhood hang. Everybody sort of said the same thing. They're like, man, we're in our PJs at 7 o'clock versus in the summer we're still at the park at 7 o'clock. It's a
Yeah.
different world. So, yeah, miss that time spending with people. So, it's it's snowing now. It's cold now, but it won't be long before stuff starts to turn. Days get a little longer. Anyways, you're not here for a news report or a weather report. Uh, so if you're enjoying the conversation we're having, get into it. You can click the like button, share this with someone you think might like this. You can also hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. You can download the buyer or seller guides below, schedule an appointment with Kyle or I in the link below, and check out the link below for more information from our sponsors at Leslie Kirk at Kirk Law Office. Big shout out to them. Big thanks. Friends of the show. Happy to support their business. And we just actually closed a transaction with them last week. And we had a delayed closing. And that's sort of the impetus for our conversation today. We wanted to talk about how it works when you're delaying a closing. But again, working with a professional like Leslie at Leslie Kirk Law Office made it so that it was just easy breezy. It really worked out well, even though it was a little bit tough, a little bit challenging. And one thing she mentioned is, hey, it's great to have a good team, and so having that collaboration, having that team effort, you're always going to find something good when you're working with Kirk Law Office. Stick around for a little bit more information about them coming down the pipe. But let's talk a little bit about delayed closings, and we'll get into the second half, maybe talking about the interest rates and what's going on with those. But yeah, we had a couple issues with delayed closings. The first one, just delayed by a day. So we were on the seller side, and the bank was supposed to send the information to the lawyer, the payout information on the mortgage to the lawyer, and they didn't do it until closing day. Well, because they didn't do it on closing day, and there was a couple who was getting separated, they couldn't close until the day after because one of the people wanted to, well, hang on a sec. The lawyer says, don't sign off on this until you get this back. So it's like a domino had to fall, and it delayed closing by a day. Not a big deal. But that buyer is like, hey, I wanted the keys for my house today. I can't get them, you know? So have you seen that when banks delay until the very last possible moment, send the mortgage?
It's not as common. It's not as common on a sale. Like it's actually very odd on a sale, in my opinion. You see it all the time. Oh, I say all the time. You see it a lot more in a refi, right? Because the retention team at the bank is trying to keep the deal that you're obviously taking away from them.
Right.
And so they'll come in at the last minute, or they'll just be like, "Hey, we're losing this money anyways. We don't want this to be smooth." Right? And they send it to the lawyer the second last day or the day of, and then that delays things, and then there's per diems to charge and blah blah blah. So, and that on a refi, that actually can be a big deal because, especially when you're at maturity, because people may not understand this, but somewhere in your documentation at some point, whether it's day one or somewhere along the way, it says typically it's either laid out in day one, side note, or it's in your renewal documents where it says you need to tell us what you're doing. I'm paraphrasing. You need to
Right.
tell us what you're doing. Are you staying? Pick one of these. Are you going? Tell us you're going. Or three, if you don't tell us anything, we're just going to make you take this. And they just put you into something. Most lenders will do something like a 6-month convertible, or not like a Corvette, like a convertible mortgage, or do a dad joke, or do like into an open, which is an atrocious interest rate, 8, 9, 10%,
Right.
which is to light the fire for you to do something.
Right.
Or so, and then you can still manage. You just do it after the fact. The problem with doing that on a sale though is like, well, it's just odd that they would do that on a sale because they're not getting the deal back anyway. So to
Yeah.
have it go the day of is pretty shitty. Doesn't happen often that I've seen. But starting again, when something like that does happen, right? It's never just here's the piece of paper. Okay, now let's go. There's a domino effect of other things that can be created. Again, separation is a new dynamic. That means that now that I'm sure the divorce lawyer or that lawyer wants to see, because did we to get the math right? Do you need to resplit? Do we need to readjust the equalization payments? Like
Yeah.
all of that for those two people, and they care but don't care about your buyer.
That's right. That's
Right?
right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they're acting for their client, not for the process of the world. Like
That's right.
they're acting for their client. So yeah, odd to see it on a sale, but I mean it happens.
Well, I mean, and again, it's about the whole package, right? And having help and having the lawyer who's running point on it, and making sure that everything's taken care of. We had that. We had another one again where we were representing the seller, and there was a second mortgage on the property, and the second mortgage was held by sort of a conglomerate of investors, so it wasn't just one person. So you got like
Hmm.
8 different cooks in the kitchen. So, and this house was buried in mortgage, promissory notes turned into whatever. And so it's negatively impacted this, investors world to the point where it's like they've got to go through and, declare, a proposal, and
So the
so,
seller's gonna go into a consumer proposal because they're underwater on that house.
yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and and it's a whole thing. So what happened? We talked about this in the past. There was a company who just would uh, Windrose, I think was the name of the company, where they're just like, oh yeah, you need money. Here's a prom note. Here's a prom note. Just stick it on that property. Don't actually put a mortgage on the property, but you've got this property. You're fine. Here's a prom note. Here's a prom note. So his first mortgage was like $150. The place he bought for 200 grand. We sold it for about just under four, and he had 400 grand of prom notes that are attached to that property. So now, these people are all going to get something out of the proposal, but they're not going to get everything. So, anyways, they delayed the closing because they're like, oh, well, we need this mortgage on the property for $400,000 paid off. And he's like, no, you're named in the proposal. You don't get it this way and this way. Like you you get what you get from the sale of the property, and that's it. You know what I mean? So he was like fighting them, and it's like, well, the deal's not going to close. And then on the other side, the buyer was supposed to take possession of the home on Wednesday, didn't get the keys on Wednesday, only got them on Thursday, was like having an aneurysm because there was an issue with the furnace in the house. And she's worried, like, oh, if the furnace is going to go, are the pipes going to burst? Is my house going to be just move into a swamp instead of an actual house? And all of these, like, things that are going off in her head, being like, this is making the whole thing worse and worse and worse. So, anyways, it did close the next day, but like all of the extra hassle that these second lenders, put on the whole transaction. Again, they don't know the domino effect. They're just saying, "Hey, I want my money. I lent you this money. I want my money back." And they said to him, he's like, "Well, you." They said to the guy who's doing all the work, well, you've put us in this position. And I told them, like, no, you tell them right back. They put themselves in this position. They lent that money. Nobody held a gun to their head and said, you have to lend this money to this guy. They lent the money thinking they were going to get it back. They didn't get it back. It's not his fault. The market changed, right?
Real estate, there's an inherent risk with real estate. As secure as it is, there's an inherent risk. And when you're getting into private lending, that's where things are you have to be aware of a bunch of stuff. I say it all the time. I talk about it with clients who are like, Kyle, I got this great idea. Great idea. Skyline. And he's like, he's going to have all this Cinesol stuff. We're going to do rent to owns. It's going to be mint. It's mint. And I'm like, dude, don't even. Right there. This isn't the US. Like in the US, you see guys all the time, like, we can change title and not even tell the bank. I'm like, how's that even possible?
Yeah.
One of the reasons, among a bunch of others, they got into so much trouble in 2008 was because it's the fucking Wild West still down there, right? Like, yes, we're heavily regulated and it's annoying, and it can be hard to buy a house in the paper and everything. There's a reason it's still fun, it's still okay to do, and we haven't collapsed to a degree, and that's because of the regulations. And you can't just willy-nilly be doing shit without lawyers and changing titles and not telling the bank and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, and it's also just understanding certain finance rules. Like you learn stuff like loan to value and first and second position. And you have to understand that you can't refinance past 80% of the value. So the only way those people, because they went into second position, and if they had gotten an appraisal, God, I hope they did. But if they didn't, if they had gotten an appraisal, realize where they sat in the loan to value scale, right? Is the fact that unless the guy sold or paid them out directly somehow, that was the only way they were going to get their money back.
Well,
that's it, because there's no room. You can't refinance past 80%.
This particular scenario, this wasn't attached to the house at the beginning. It was just a promissory note. So
that's even worse.
Yeah.
Like,
and look, this was a whole like predatory lending thing that they did an article on in CBC. There was these two guys up in Northern Ontario, former child actor or something like that. Remember that thing?
Yeah.
Anyways, so this guy was looped in with the same thing, just on a smaller scale. He didn't have like 500 properties like these guys had. He just had one or two, right? So it's like same technique though, where it's just like, oh, hey, you need money? Yeah, here's a promissory note. Oh, okay. Lender, just give me this money and I'll lend it out to this person, not checking the back end of it and making sure that everything was cool. So,
escape, you have to have your escape clauses in if you're getting into private lending. Yeah. Like, for sure, you have to have your escape. You have to know the exit. If you don't know the exit, it's a very dangerous game to play. And that, like, most people are ill-equipped to do it, and it's why things are so stringent in what we do. And like you said it before, what people don't understand either is, or don't tend to think about, is the infinite dominoes that can fall and how things can come about with a delayed closing, right? Yeah. Because think about it, this person's buying, but the closing delays, right? No matter let's pretend it's the buyer that delays closing, because that happens more often. Yes. Right? Buyer delays closing. Well, this guy needed the money from this person to go buy this house. That's right. And now they have to delay closing because they don't have the money to buy this house, who now doesn't have the money to go buy this house. And then there's extra expense and worry and concern, and there's always going to be money involved. And that shit flows back uphill. So eventually the person who's tipped the first domino is going to get hit with everybody else's expenses if there's no end. Now, there's always an end somewhere, but that could just keep happening. It's a weird thought and picture.
When I started in real estate, I heard this story about a deal that was that had I think it was like 12 or 15 points on it, and each point represented a purchase and sale, and each point was a sale that was subject to the sale of the buyer's property. So we call them first refusals. And there was a circle of 12 of them that went all the way back. And so that it was that much of like a domino effect.
Coincidentally?
it just, hey, stuff happened. So okay, I'll buy your house if I sell mine. Okay, great, I'll take that deal. Okay, I'll buy your house if I sell mine. I've got this other thing that says I'll buy my house. And so it went around 12 times, and the last people went to buy the first house. And so I was like,
So that's the coincidence of it. Is
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. Is that
wow?
they're like, yeah, okay, I'll take that house. And like, oh, actually, if you follow this back all the way, that's actually the house. So I don't remember any of it other than like, oh shit, that was a cool story from like someone who'd been in business for like 20 years before I started. I don't know any of the specifics of it, not involved in it, anything like that, but just to hear like, oh wow, is it even true? I don't know. Real estate lore. There you go. We'll take a quick break. I've still got a couple more delayed closing stories to tell you. And we also want to talk about the impact and the expectations in terms of rate drops for the rest of this year. And we just did have one. And so, yeah, we'll hit you back on the flip side after we have a quick word from our sponsor. And we'll see you soon. As a real estate broker, I know that having the right legal team is essential for a smooth and successful property transaction, and that's why I recommend Leslie Kirk and her team at Kirk Law Office. Leslie's expertise, integrity, and approachable nature make her a trusted ally for buyers, sellers, and investors alike. Working alongside Leslie is Yulia Shulakevich, whose passion for delivering exceptional client service ensures every detail is handled with care. Fluent in English, Ukrainian, Russian, and Polish, Yulia provides outstanding support to clients from diverse backgrounds, making complex processes feel straightforward. Together, Leslie and Yulia bring dedication, professionalism, and a personalized touch to every client interaction. If you're looking for a legal team that truly has your back, contact Kirk Law Office today at kirklawoffice.ca or call 613-238-8006. With Kirk Law Office, you're in trusted hands for your next real estate transaction. Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the second half of the Real Collective podcast, where we're going to keep talking about delayed closings and get into what's going on in the world of rate drops, specifically with this overlay of uncertainty moving forward for the rest of the year. As we do, we want to just alert you to hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, sharing this with someone who you think might like this conversation. Also alert you to the buyer and seller guides that you can open up down below, as well as the information about Kirk Law Office and the calendar links that you can get into scheduling an appointment with Calendar. The third story that I've got for a delayed closing is, again, I was on the listing side and the buyer delayed closing, and I think that they were they were supposed to close on Wednesday last week. They'll be closing Wednesday this week. I think they delayed closing because they were rate shopping. I think there was
Yes.
the rate announcement happened on whatever it was last week on Tuesday or Wednesday, and they're like, oh well, we're supposed to close Wednesday, but maybe we can get a better rate if we just delay it for a week. And so we pushed back and
Probably
said,
didn't.
what's that?
They probably didn't.
No. We pushed back and we said, look, you can have your delay of a week, but we want a further non-refundable deposit that covers the lawyer fees, the per diem on the mortgage and on the bridge mortgage, because they've already closed on their new house, right? So they closed on the new house. They went in, they went to go fix it up. They've got someone at the new house which is fixing up the bathrooms, and they were supposed to pay that person from the proceeds of the sale. Well, they don't have the proceeds of the sale, so now they're delayed paying the contractor, and the contractor's delayed paying the workers, and so all of that has this sort of, again, domino effect that we were talking about, right? And so she's like, oh well, you know what? Not only do I have to, pay for utilities for both houses, I also am getting saddled with a higher credit card bill because I'm footing this bill for this extra week. So you've got to pay me an extra, $1,200. I'm like, no, we're not paying you $1,200. And she's like, okay, fine, 900. I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll pay you 900. So she got an extra $900 to cover off all these extra, the brain damage of having to deal with delaying everything, and then the costs associated with borrowing that extra money. So it's it's something.
It's again, it's a thing of, I find it interesting in real estate because everybody thinks that they're the only deal that's happening, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not coming down on people, just it is the only deal that matters to you,
Right.
right? But it's this expectation that everyone else is going to fix it, or they're just going to agree with what I have to do with, not realizing that there's other things that happen,
Yeah.
and or not willing to admit there's other things that happen.
Yep.
And again, this is a classic case to me of people not doing the numbers to see what's up. Like even to, like again, I don't know where these people are coming from. But
No.
when you say, hey, you just cost me $1,200, right? And they're like, oh no, we're not paying that. And I'm thinking, but you delayed a week because you think you're gonna save a whole pile of money.
That's right.
So it's their problem that you want to save money, but it's not your problem that you cost them money.
Yeah.
Like, that's entitlement to a T. So it's like, and then did you get it? Like, did you save the $7 a month that you thought you were going to by jumping down? Right? Because I'd love to know the outcome just to know if I'm completely off base. But I'm very skeptical that they saved any money at all based on the time frame. And
Well,
by the way, it again, right? Depending on your lender, you may not be able to do this,
right.
right? A lot of people who are chasing rates, and let's look at big six banks and non-bank lenders, not B lenders, just non-bank lenders, right? The monoline lenders that only do mortgages, they're great, they're excellent. They typically have some better interest rates. They also have a couple little hooks in there that when you're chasing rate, you're stuck. One of them, in lots of cases, is they don't have lawyers that work for them. They
That's right.
use title companies who are great. The 3 or 4 of them that they use, mostly 2, but there's a couple of them out there. Those companies need 10 days typically to close the deal.
Right.
So when you're going to make them start over because you're chasing that interest rate, there's no guarantee you're going to get through that. And remember, weekends don't count.
Yeah.
Those don't exist in our world as from financing,
Yeah.
right? So just like I've yelled at you and other realtors and they say, hey, look, I gave you 7 days. And it's like, yeah, the 7 days with 3 of them over Easter, with 4 of them over Easter weekend. Like Friday's out, Saturday's out, Sunday's out, and Monday's out. Thanks for the 2 days, Jeff. Right? Like whatever. Like so it's never 7 days. It's always gonna fucking Jeff. It's always gonna be it's always gonna be longer than that. So you have to know the game you're playing to see how much impact this is gonna have on you and your entire transaction.
Well,
In a different market, people would just be like, nope, I'm throwing it back on the market. Like in COVID, you wouldn't get away with that.
well,
You barely get away with that.
I just ran the math on it. 900 divided by 60 payments. You know how much that is? $15 a month.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You think you're gonna save $15 a month? I don't think so. I think it's gonna end up costing you more than you're gonna get back.
Now the thing is, okay, let's say you do. Let's say you got a 5 or 10 basis point reduction because it worked out for you,
Sure.
right? And you do save more. Why are you complaining about? I just don't think it's fair that you're complaining about the money that the other side is asking for.
Right. Right.
Because that will add up to be more than $1,200 over the 5 years or 3 years or whatever it is. So you were correct. You will save more money by doing this. Congratulations. You also just kicked the shit out of somebody else. So take the hit, be fair, and let's move on. Right.
I honestly, when I was negotiating, that was one of the points that I was making. I was saying to my seller client, I'm like, ask for more. If they really think they're going to be saving this extra money, ask them for more. Ask for a higher number than you think is fair. And so, we I think we reached a little bit with 1,200, but at the same time, the argument to be made to the other side is simply to say, hey, you're causing us financial and emotional trouble, like stress. One of your big things you always say is, "Oh, never go on vacation during a closing." She was on vacation and she had to do all this from a beach, right? So she's project managing this whole thing remotely, trying to enjoy her time, and of course it happens, right? Because you told her not to, and so she did. This is
Don't do it. Never do it. Well, we will. The universe will find a way to. They'll find a way to ruin your vacation. You are not a baller. This is not HGTV. Like, don't. Like, oh, I'm on vacation and I bring my laptop because I know that's the way my business runs. I've resigned myself to that fact. That's the way it is. I don't get upset about it, right? My wife doesn't get upset about it. That's what happens when the way I work. Okay, you are not that. You do not do this every day. You are an individual who does not do real estate every day. Don't pretend it's a good time because you're on vacation doing it on the beach. You will ruin you. It's going to be ruined. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. It's silly. That drives me bananas. I'm not saying she deserves it. I'm just saying that drives me bananas.
I hear you.
God.
I think there's certainly some. We had another delayed closing last year at the end of last year, and it went for probably I'm gonna say like 3 months, and it was just like oh a delay, oh a delay, oh a delay, and then it's finally it closed, and we were so surprised to see it close. But just some guy was like, yeah, I'll pay for it cash. And like, no, turns out you can't pay for it cash. Okay, sell my house. Okay, we'll sell your house. Here's what it's gonna sell for. I can't list it for that low. It won't sell then. So we listed the house didn't sell. And then he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he finally figured out a way. I don't know how he did it. I think he got like someone else to co-sign for him or whatever. So he finally worked it out, closed on the property. But the gracious sellers were like, yeah, okay, give him more time, give him more time. I was saying like, no, don't give him more time. But they were like, yeah, okay, we're gonna do what we can to help this guy out. So there's a lot of different reasons for delayed closing.
I think the one thing that I do throw to a lot of clients, especially if they're in the situation of they have to sell to buy and it can get delayed and things like that, or when something happens, something just negative happens and it's going to be delayed by, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, a week, whatever it is. My mentality, this could be right, it could be wrong, is because I'm usually dealing with a buyer in most cases,
Yeah.
right? Is just like, look, most likely nobody here is going to die. Like this is probably going to be okay. And as much as it's going to be uncomfortable, so I'm kind of hypocritical because I'm on one side, I'm saying one thing, and to my buyers, I'm saying another. But I'm sitting there saying, hey, look, right, from a selling point of view, and maybe you agree, from a selling point of view, what's worse? Waiting a week or 2 weeks, right? Asking for compensation, though, I will give them that. You're
Yeah.
going to pay them something. You got to be fair. But are you going to trash the deal, start over, relist, hope you get the same thing? Because you're not closing in a week
That's right.
with a new deal. You're not closing in a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you do kind of have a little bit of advantage if
Yeah.
it's fair.
Yeah.
If it's not fair, well, then no, scrap it. But like the fact that someone was cool enough to go 3 months, to me, that's crazy. Because you could have relisted and sold and closed not in 3 months.
But it wasn't
Right?
3 months. It was a month and a month and a month, right? So it was like
Right.
chunked out. So, but yeah, I mean, it's very rare to see. Just real quick, just shifting gears a bit before we jump off, just want to talk about the impact that the interest rate drop had, and the change in what the expectations are in terms of interest rate drops are now for the rest of the year. Because I think before this tariff announcement, we were talking about seeing, maybe three more quarter point drops throughout the course of the year. And now I think they're talking about getting more like 6 quarter point drops throughout the course of the year. So
I've actually seen all of it as usual. The research bias is crazy, right? So you can find whatever you want. The
yes.
day of the drop, the day of the prime rate drop, the bond market actually went up, and
Yeah.
then it started to creep down later in the day. So
Yeah.
that was cool. After we did see the next day or today, we saw a little bit of a drop in the fixed rates. Remember, guys, prime is one thing, fixed is another. They don't move at the same time for the same reasons. The only lever that the Bank of Canada has to pull if shit goes south is prime. And the bond market will react differently. And at one point, they were saying, okay, things are coming down. We're going to see the Bank of Canada keep dropping down. We might see their overnight rate hit, 2.75, 2.5. We're already now at 3. So that's interesting to see. But the same point with the tariff announcement coming, and that's almost inevitable. What they're seeing, what another thought is that, hey, we may actually have to start putting things back up because of inflation happening.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, if inflation goes up, but then jobs go down, then what then? Like it's voodoo and feelings right now. You can find whatever you want. You
Yeah.
can find whatever you want. That things are going to shoot to 10%, things are going to drop to COVID zero. You can see it all. So I don't think we know. We just don't know how
Yeah.
things are going to react at the end of the day.
I really like when you said, "Oh, when shit goes south," and I think now if we're going to be saying if shit goes south, then it should cost an extra quarter, an extra 25%. It's
There you go.
yeah, man. It's a brave new world, strange new world, something interesting and new to navigate. I think it's going to have an impact on a lot of what we're doing. I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty between. We've got two elections coming up, a provincial and a federal election. We've got the uncertainty, going on with this tariff stuff. So I think there's going to be some good opportunities, and I think there's going to be some sellers who are not able to achieve their goal of selling.
My one thing I'll say,
Say
my
it.
vote is
Tell your vote.
if you're getting in, I think as crazy as it might sound, a variable or an adjustable rate is one of your quote unquote safest options if you're someone who's rate driven. If you are safety driven, you're always taking a fixed, and never, ever, ever do you get to say, I should, oh man, I missed out. Nope, you didn't. You got the best at your time. You set your price, you set your payment, you're good. That's it. If you're rate driven, yeah, ride that variable because that's the only thing that's going to happen. And again, odds are, odds are right now they're actually very close to being at parity. The variable rate with the discount is going to be almost the same as your fixed. And there's a higher likelihood that prime is dropping, which means your rate's going to go down, which means your payment's going to go down. And when you're fixed, you can't do anything anyway. So if you're rate driven, I actually think it's if you're rate driven and scared about, I might want to sell, I might want to this, I might want to definitely take a variable because the odds are the penalties are better in essence.
I'm
So
I'm different than you. I'm the safety guy. I want the same monthly payments. I just want to know what it is. I'll take my 5-year fixed. Thanks very much.
and there's nothing wrong with that.
I know who I
Absolutely
am.
nothing. The only time it's wrong is when if you wake up one day and said, God, I shoulda. Nope, then that was the wrong move.
No.
If you never say I shoulda and just said, yeah, that's what I picked because that was the right at the time for me, power to you. You're winning. You're winning.
It's one less thing for me to worry about. I think it's a great place for us to wrap. I want to give a special shout out again to Kirk Law Office, Leslie Kirk, great lawyer in Ottawa, awesome to work with. Office is right down on Hawthorne, so right in the middle of the city, easy to get to from anywhere, just off the highway. You can hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody you think might like this conversation. Also, you can download the buyer or seller guides below, or book an appointment with Kyle or I in the Calendly links below. And until next time, keep it real.
Collective.